Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
Well, it's the day after the election. Did you sleep at all last night?
Did you get any sleep last night? For me, that was the first election night in an even-numbered year that I've watched in my own home since 2012. Right. Since 2012. That was, yeah. And I had a buddy who he texted me. He was like, I think we came to your house on election night on 2012. And I said, yeah. He said, come to ours tonight. I said, well, I've got 100 tabs open on my computer. My wife just made no-bake cookies. I'm sitting on the couch. I've got everything spread out. I don't think I'm moving.
Yeah, because you've been on, we've both done national radio broadcasts through iVoters for all those years. And this year, one of the broadcast sources that we've used decided to go a different direction with a lot of different things that they had done.
Yeah, they went national. They didn't use anyone local and went national. But in doing all that,
we were able to work in our networks for the first time.
We were, but I don't know how all those years, maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know how all those years I talked on the radio and still looked up stuff, answered text. Last night I felt a tad overwhelmed with everything I was doing, taking notes, and I'm like, I don't know how. I'd like to listen back to hear what I said because I'm not sure it made any sense.
But you've always said you like live radio better than pre-recorded. So I think you just it's like the athlete in you. It's game time. And so when the lights are on, you perform the best. I think that's got to be probably what it is, the mindset.
It's got to be something.
The adrenaline.
So the big question is, okay, what just happened and what does it mean? It looks a little obvious, but there are a lot of layers underneath the big question as far as who the next president is going to be, which is now resolved. There are so many other things that happened in that election. So look, let's start with the presidency. What surprised you guys the most from what you witnessed?
The strong showing in Virginia early. Even when some counties were going to come in that I thought it was going to turn it, as I was watching that, I said, I knew he wasn't going to win Virginia. I knew Donald Trump wasn't going to win Virginia, but I thought he would be buried a lot sooner than he was there. And I'm like, wow, this may be a touch interesting. And as we watched that and the night went on, my strategy was watch North Carolina and Georgia. If Donald Trump won those, then you shift to Michigan and Wisconsin. If he wins one of those, he's probably going to win Arizona. Then Pennsylvania doesn't even matter. That was, for me, the night when it comes to the presidency, what I was taking a look at.
For me, it was the broad coalition of folks that you might not expect to turn out and vote for a Republican candidate. The Amish turned out in record numbers in Pennsylvania to vote for Donald Trump. That's almost against their religion to vote. I mean, for people who maybe don't live around the Amish, they typically don't vote at all. So for the Amish to turn out and vote for Donald Trump was pretty amazing. And it was funny. I was just thinking, on one hand, you have Elon Musk, a man who wants to colonize Mars. He launches rockets into space and then catches them again. You have a billionaire who plays with rockets on one side supporting Donald Trump, and then you have people who still use the horse and buggy also supporting Donald Trump. Has there ever been a broader coalition of support? I've never seen it. So that to me was very surprising.
So let's ask the question, why? Why do you think that coalition is in its breadth came together in that one electoral moment in regards to the presidency? What do you think people were sensing? What do we know that they were sensing?
Well, the one advantage Donald Trump had that no other candidate has had is people got to live under a 4-year term with him. So they got to compare and contrast. They got to say, how was my life from the beginning of 2017 to 2021 when he served as president compared to what it was 4 years ago from today?
And I think a lot of people felt that his presidency was a bit cut short by COVID itself. The economy was booming. It was going great. Had a lot of cool, potential cool plans, things that he wanted to do. And then COVID hit. And now you go into scramble mode. And he didn't handle that perfectly. But I think people felt like they wanted to give him another crack at another 4 years without a global pandemic.
That's the thing. The things they could have attacked him on regarding COVID. They couldn't attack him on regarding COVID because they were far to the left of where he was. There are plenty of people that look at how Donald Trump handled COVID and said, oh, you should have done this different. You should have done that different. But then when the Dems came in office, they took it to even further extremes and wanted people fired for not taking vaccines and so many other things. So they couldn't even attack Donald Trump on that.
So, I mean, was it a popularity contest? Did they just come out because, they had been warmed and charmed by the whole thing and they wanted to get their oar in the water?
I think a little bit. A presidency is a popularity contest, and I think you saw Trump when he went to McDonald's and served McDonald's, and when he showed up in a garbage truck after Trump supporters were called garbage by the sitting president. So those kind of viral moments. Well, and then you go back even further. He was shot. And kind of the media kind of forgot about it, but he rose up, and even Mark Zuckerberg said took the most iconic photograph perhaps ever with the flag waving, fight, blood on his face. So those kind of huge moments, they do play in terms of they make someone popular.
They do. And I think the American people are smart enough to see through the facade that is the mainstream media. Alan mentions him getting shot. Well, Donald Trump, about a week ago, 10 days ago, made a reference to Liz Cheney and I believe called her a warmonger and talked about if rifles were pointed. He was talking about if she served in war that she voted for, her family voted for. That was the context of what was being spoken. The media ran and said that Donald Trump wants her put in front of a firing squad. They covered her. That comment of him about her more than they covered his assassination attempt when he literally got shot. And I think the American people kind of sat back and were like, wait a minute here. You had over 50% of the population vote for a candidate, and supporters of that candidate are not really represented at major media outlets at all across the country. When you look at the newspapers, when you look at corporate television.
We've said for weeks on this broadcast, RFK Jr. said it. We mentioned this. Dave, you mentioned this one of the last times we talked. This was a referendum on mainstream media versus alternative media sources. And I really think that that's a big piece of what this came down to. The mainstream media, it's over for you guys. It's over. And the writing was on the wall. Some of them saw it with the non-endorsement position, but going on Rogan, making the podcast tour, Elon Musk buying X, that had a huge impact on the election because you saw men turn out in record numbers, and those are primary spaces where men congregate. It just is.
Well, and I think that's one thing. Everybody talked about the gender disparity, but the only thing people seemed to focus on was women and abortion. They didn't talk about the other half of the gender disparity. They didn't say who are men going to vote for. I think they thought early on, well, it was a done deal that men and young men and black men would vote for Vice President Harris. That didn't turn out to be the case. They took those for granted. And about a month ago, I think they came to that conclusion, and they realized that because that's when they sent out President Obama basically telling them what to do. And they didn't listen. When people are told what to do, you're kind of hesitant to listen to it. And they were hesitant to listen.
You have to inspire people's vote. You can't hector them into voting for you. You got to inspire people.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what is really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to The Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast. Or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America is really talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
It will take months to get into all of the nuances of what happened in that election in regards to ballot issues, in regards to the United States Senate, the United States House. This was a very big election. But you asked about, did you get any sleep? I couldn't, because I feel like you can't sleep when history's unfolding right in front of you. I mean, we cannot disregard the reality that since Grover Cleveland, no president has been reelected to a non-concurrent second term. That doesn't happen. That's a big deal. And then when you think of all the things that were thrown at Donald Trump that were, I don't know what word to use, but let's just say that the people in charge of the government seemed to find any way possible to bring this man into peril in his business and his company and his family. And they utilized all of it. I happen to think that was a strategy that backfired, but it was all there. I just, it's funny. I think when you think about the question of a popularity contest, you've got 30% of the base on one side, 30% of the base on the other, and there's a whole bigger number of people that were in the middle. They weren't in love with either one of these candidates. I would suggest that what we had was a bit of an awakening. Now, I know that's a word that's been co-opted by the progressive left as being woke. No, I mean an awakening. I think, Alan, you bring a tremendous point. What would bring Amish buggies and Teslas out on the same road to go do the same thing in regards to their country? That is such an illustrating and almost romantic graphic. We got to do something with that.
Yeah, we should. That'd be interesting.
You guys get on a meme or something. Do whatever you do. But that's a big deal because there was an awakening that this was important for everyone's future.
It's almost like it's a fork in the road. It was a fork in the road. I think people felt because you also saw Hispanics turn out and black men turn out in record number. And I think that's important for conservatives. And we talked about this on the Public Square, folks. If you want to hear a longer conversation about this with more of our team, find us at thepublicsquare.com. But the MAGA movement has long been called like racist and all this type of stuff. Well, when you have minorities turning out and he's overperforming in those demographics, I don't think that you can call it a racist white supremacist movement any longer. I just think you have to retire that one.
It's going to be interesting as well to see when he puts this administration and this cabinet together. And now that he has a buffer or two in the United States Senate, when it comes to the confirmation votes, you may see an even bigger. I don't know how you can open the barn door any wider than the Amish and Elon Musk, but they're going to find a way to see that team come together. I think you're going to see that. I mean,
isn't that what the American people want? Isn't that what we want?
Yes.
You want to have an administration that's for everybody. That's what I think you want. You got Tulsi Gabbard, you got RFK Jr. It's
nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
Nobody saw that coming together. And so I think that those sort of things don't happen because Donald Trump was writing big checks.
No.
He wasn't playing the role of George Soros and buying out the Republican Party. That's not his style. I think people rose to a sense of need. And that is very fascinating to me because that's historically when Americans actually change things. When history is made is when people make a commitment that has to be made because they realize something's got to be done here. Now, people are going to listen to what we talk about and they're going to accuse us of being MAGA and being Republicans and being Trumpites. We're none of those things. Stick around. We've been doing this since 1989. We remember when Donald Trump first ran for the presidency. Like this is like his fourth or fifth or sixth time, all right, which I consider to be admirable. All right. That's not being critical. I mean, we remember a little at this stage after being up for 2 days, not all that well, but we do remember a little. Yeah. But the point is something happened in the mindset across the country and it exhibited itself in a very significant electoral outcome. And that outcome impacted a lot of things. George Soros and John Podesta had ballot measures out there across the country. And the wave of influence of people who came in California, George Soros's prosecutor got unelected, got thrown out of office. In California, ballot issues that had been backed by the progressive movement were thrown out. Laws were changed and transformed. In Ohio, the attempt to change the redistricting process with a Soros-funded proposal bounced out. I mean, there was a lot of things going on under the scenes that people were paying attention. I find that exhilarating. I find an informed electorate that is representing their interests, their concerns, their communities. That's how this system was established and how it was supposed to work. So I think that's a big deal. On the flip side, we've got one question. I think we got to bring it up. We don't want to put this all fancy, I don't want to get all collegiate about this because there's a question that we got to ask. How come there were 18 million fewer votes cast on November 6th than there were in 2020 in the last presidential election? Trump got 3 million less and Kamala Harris got 15 million less than Joe Biden. Do you mind? You guys got any thoughts on that?
I do think Kamala Harris is just a very unpopular candidate. She was someone who was swapped in at the last moment. She never got any votes when she was running.
She didn't get the Amish vote. I get it.
She didn't get any votes in the primary, not one.
Yeah, she was a very unpopular candidate. Any tape, that's not for or against any candidate, but you just have to look in the mirror. Not a popular candidate, and so that's just going to drive your turnout down. It's going to crater it.
It is. In 2020 was a COVID election year. A larger percentage of ballots came in via mail, where people didn't show up to vote in person or on election day. I can think of Georgia with Stacey Abrams and others out gathering ballots or soliciting ballots, and that happened all across the country. The Democratic machine was working, and they were working primarily against Donald Trump, painting him as evil. Remember also, too, we're a reactionary country, and Donald Trump had just got 3 Supreme Court justices confirmed. So that gave a lot of people pause and hesitation and said, wait a minute here, what path are we going down? So it was easy to campaign against him. Now, 4 years later, when you have people that are going to vote, they're thinking about their most recent trip to the grocery store and what that cost compared to what it cost 4 years ago. So those are the comparisons that they were making in 2024. And while they may not be willing to vote for Donald Trump, they didn't have the energy to get up and go vote for Kamala Harris. And I think the campaign, the Harris campaign, and the fact that they tried to paint themselves as a distant to Joe Biden at times, and like, we're not him, we're going to turn the page, we're going to go somewhere different. Well, wait a minute. You've been there 4 years. You've been a United States Senator. Why haven't you got those things done now? They try to turn the page, yet when she was asked on morning talk shows, give us a policy that you would have done different than Joe Biden did, and she couldn't name one. Those are the video clips that get shared among friends. Like, hey, wait a minute here. What's going on? So I think, as Alan said, she wasn't a popular candidate. She didn't inspire people to get off the couch and go vote for her.
Something I didn't hear anybody talk about, Bernie Moreno, Ohio, and the question of abortion. How could Bernie Moreno win a statewide race, being pro-life, being attacked for his position on abortion by Sherrod Brown, a Democrat icon in the state, been in government for 50 years.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And survive and win. How could he do that when in 2023, Ohio overwhelmingly passed an abortion measure?
Well, I think when it comes to Bernie, I think he needs to give some credit to President Trump. I think President Trump helped get him across the finish line. But I also think, again, Democrats tried to make the Ohio Senate race about the issue of abortion. They were playing clips of things that Bernie Moreno said about being pro-life. But Ohioans also understood Bernie Moreno is not going to vote on any abortion legislation. Ohioans changed the Constitution to put abortion in the Constitution. They feel like that's done and over with right now. They have pressing issues. Abortion is not the issue of the day for everyone. And they thought that was going to trump the economy. They thought that was going to be bigger than immigration. They thought it was going to be bigger than jobs and education. So many things. And the Democrat strategy, I just feel, was a poor strategy.
Yeah, I do almost wonder.
It was not the wedge issue that they had planned on being. It was, in fact, it may have worked the other way.
It may have. And also, it didn't help that Sherrod Brown was running commercials. Everyone knows Sherrod Brown's a classic liberal. He's voted that way his entire career. His commercials included pictures of him in the Oval Office with President Trump, saying like they support the same things. Pictures of him with law enforcement talking about being tough on the border.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wait a minute. Is this a different Sherrod Brown that served in public office representing the folks of different communities and districts and the entire state of Ohio the last 50 years?
Well, the change in the Senate's a big deal. There's so much more to talk about. We've got a lot more to do. Let's get back together again this week as more and more data comes out. I think we're going to be on this for a while.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.